20th of February, 9:23 a.m., the Old Bailey, Defendants Antechamber. Hey guys, Lex here, back for some more of the Great Ace Attorney. I'm surprised it took this long, but we finally have a case with both an investigation and a trial. Let's just start. Well, I never expected this. Would have thought we'd be back here again so soon.
We are on a study tour of Great Britain, with the intention of learning the country's legal practices. In order to research the latest court procedures here, we need as much court experience as possible.
Well, yes, I suppose that's true, but for the person in the dock, it may as well be his or her one and only time in court, and it could be life-changing. In which case, treating it as research may seem a little crass.
Oh, when you put it like that, you're quite right. Good morning!
Mr. Natsume, good morning.
Oh dear, are you alright? Your eyes are terribly bloodshot. The early bird catches the worm, as they say here in Britain.
Yes, I've heard that expression.
But I really don't want to catch a worm. So I tried desperately not to wake up early, but I was so worried I couldn't catch a wink. And now, I'm absolutely exhausted as a result.
Do all literary people take things so literally?
Thank you for putting your faith in us today, Mr. Natsume. I wish I had 9 lives. My whole future hangs in the balance. I'm too terrified to tremble.
Really? Because I could feel tremors in the floor.
I can't do this. I can't take it. Although, Locum Student Mr. Naruto Esquire.
Yeah?
I caught a glimpse of the public gallery as I walked by the courtroom. It looked like the opening night of an opera. There were so many people. I had no idea my case was such a notorious affair here in London.
Neither did I. Do you know why that might be, Mrs. Sato?
I'm sorry, Mr. Naruto, but I have no idea.
So that all-knowing look on your face is just coincidence, then, is it?
Don't hide the truth from me! It's because of the Reaper, isn't it?
Oh, Lord Van Zeeks? Is that right, Mrs. Sato?
I purchased as many different newspapers as I could find this morning, and yes, Lord Van Zeeks is on the front page of every one.
I knew it.
Sometime after the prosecutor was dubbed the Reaper of the Bailey, he stopped appearing in court, it seems. It's been several years now, in fact, until the day before yesterday.
Yes, Inspector Gregson told us something similar, didn't he?
The trial 2 days ago marked Lord Van Zeeks' return to the courtroom after a very long hiatus.
Trial of Magnus McGilted. What a harrowing experience that was.
I believe that appearance made even greater waves here in the capital than today's.
But we wouldn't have realized, of course, having only just arrived in the country.
Why is the Reaper back in the Bailey so soon for what appears to be a mundane murder? That's the question the papers are asking, and they're all speculating various answers. Mundane! Mundane! It's the most significant saga of the century to some of us. Oh dear, I meant no offense, Mr. Natsume, but that is how the papers are describing it. Well, lest we also forget the fact that it could spark an international incident. Obviously, the reappearance of this infamous prosecutor has caught people's attention. But there's another blatant similarity with the trial of 2 days ago. Yes, I agree. Locum student Mr. Naruto Esquire, it's you.
Me? Well, I suppose that's true.
Both times it's you who stands against the legendary prosecutor. It can only mean that you're friends with the Reaper.
Please, I don't rub shoulders with Deathbringers. But he seems like a cool guy.
I'm afraid there's really only one other explanation. It can only be another example, Mr. Naruto, of your uncommon bad luck.
Thanks for that.
Oh, this is just my luck. Why must I be represented by a man with such frail fortune? By the least lucky lawyer alive.
Well, let's not forget that it was you, Mr. Natsume, who asked me to represent you.
Oh,
Yes, it's true that I'm just a student, new to London, with little in the way of experiences or skills, or luck. But I promise you this. I will fight your corner until a bitter end. I will believe in you, Mr. Natsume.
oh, benevolent locum student Mr. Naruto Esquire. You're not alone here with us, Mr. Natsume. Whatever happens, we will always be on your side. Oh, benevolent non-locum assistant Miss Mikatoba Esquires. Oh, I am in your debt forever. I shall never forget this great kindness for as long as I live.
Mr. Natsume, counsel for the defense. The court session is about to begin. Kindly make your way into the courtroom at once. Alright then, Mr. Natsume. It's time. Let's go.
Yeah, yes.
This is it. My second appearance in the British courtroom. And my second trial against the Reaper. Hope you're watching over me, Kazuma. Because this time, I won't let my faith waver. I believe in my client to the last. Just like you believed in me. I believe I can do this now. I'm ready for this fight. th of February, 10 o'clock a.m. The Old Bailey Courtroom. Oh, hey, it's him.
In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. I now call upon the counsels for the prosecution and defense to declare their willingness to proceed. The prosecution is fully prepared, my lord.
The defense is ready, my lord.
The Nipponese are a truly fascinating breed.
Sorry, what?
Long Strongheart has told me all about you. That you are a student who arrived in London but 2 days ago, a mere amateur.
Do you have a point?
Being a compatriot, you feel compelled to try to help the accused, I suppose. Typical Nipponese arrogance.
Forgive me, but I do not believe arrogance is an appropriate description.
Sasato-san.
After all, at our previous encounter, the defendant was found to be innocent.
So, very true, and a most fascinating, if dark, trial it was too. The tragic conclusion came later, of course. Here's to the acquitted and his unfortunate, violent end.
Hey. She's a...
Thank you, counsel. I see both sides are in fine fettle. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, are you ready to carry out your duties here in court as impartial members of the public? You never know where you might be down with your luck, but I believe in fair play for everyone.
Oh, well, I must warn you, I'm rather more ruthless than I appear.
Oh, well, not me. What you see is what you get. I'm a peace-loving fellow.
I'm afraid to say, I think it's quite possible that Mustache foreigner did indeed.
Excuse me, Your Honor, I would like to strike this juror. Her husband is renting out one of their rooms to the defendant.
Come on, what are you waiting for? No doubt he did it anyway.
Sorry? Didn't quite catch that. Very well, let's proceed. Your opening statement, if you please, Lord Mazix.
Very recently, Great Britain signed an allegiance with a rising power in the Far East. The accused in the dock today is a student from that same land, a certain Mr. Soseki Natsume. And while our country has extended this foreign student the warmest of welcomes, regrettably, the kindness has not been returned. In fact, the student is accused of a most sinister act. Of plunging a knife into the back of an innocent woman who was doing nothing but walking down the street.
A knife crime?
I tell from bitter experience, those are the worst.
Bloody oath they are.
I already forgot her voice.
Just look at his sallow complexion and short stature. He's one of those dreadful Japanese.
Come on, let's get this over with. With me now, everyone. 1, 2, 3.
Sorry? Didn't quite catch that.
Pray forgive the discourtesy of smashing my hallowed chalice here in this great chamber. Allow me to call the first witness to the stand.
Very well. Bailiff, lead the inspector in, please.
Okay. I get a voice.
Your name and occupation, please.
Yes, sir. Tobias Gregson, Detective Inspector at Scotland Yard.
Would you please summarize the events of the case for the court, Inspector?
The victim is thought to be a young woman in her 20s by the name of Olive Green.
I beg your pardon, Inspector. Thought to be?
Yes, having been stabbed in the back by her attacker's knife, the victim felt unconscious. That was 3 days ago now, and she's been comatose ever since.
What? They don't even know who she is for sure.
Comatose, I see. But her life is not in danger. Fortunately for the Eastern student, the charge will not be murder. Pray, elaborate on the details, Inspector.
Sir, if I could ask everyone to look at this street map. As I mentioned, the incident took place 3 days ago, at around 5 in the afternoon. It happened on a pavement running along Briar Road, a wide thoroughfare for horse-drawn vehicles. It had not been long since it stopped snowing as the victim, Miss Green, was walking down the street. Out of the blue, she was approached from behind by the accused and stabbed in the back. Luckily, the young lady's life was spared, and she is currently being treated in one of those city hospitals. But being unconscious as she is, we've been unable to take a statement from her, of course. This is the case file with everything we know about the victim so far.
Thank you, Inspector. The court will accept the documents as evidence, if you please.
The case has been added. Incident report. Details. Young woman rendered unconscious following a stab wound to the back. Victim, olive green, female, stout build, early 20s. Location, pavement of Briar Road, east side. Reporting officer, Rowley Beat. Additional notes. The victim remains unconscious. Her name was gleaned from her personal effects. Other details are unknown. Apart from the single stab wound from the large knife, no other signs of injury were observed. The assailant was seen running away by the reporting officer and was successfully arrested the following day. Let's check out... Only 32. What of the weapon that was used?
Sir, I have that here. It was removed from the victim's back.
Ouch, that big thing is starting to make me scared to walk down the street now.
What?
It's not that big.
With a heavy blade like that, almost anybody would have been able to stab that poor woman.
Even the scraggard-looking Soseki-san, I suppose.
A common or garden jackknife, I would say. Rather nondescript. Thank you, Inspector. The court accepts the blade as evidence.
Cool.
Now then, what do we do with the motive? Money or valuables, I presume?
Gotta take a look at the knife. What? It's not even, doesn't even have a tip. It's a sheep's foot.
Oh, look here, Mr. Naruto. Just at the tip, a small piece of blade appears to be missing.
You're right. Well spotted, Mrs. Sato.
I wonder what could have happened to it.
Yes. You don't think it could still be lodged in the victim, do you?
Oh dear, I do hope not. That sounds terribly painful.
Yeah. How would it even have broken off?
Now then, what do you know of the motive? Money or valuables, I presume?
From what I could tell by looking at the woman's possessions, it seems like she's a poor student herself.
Hard to imagine she would have anything much worth pinching, my lord. I see. Well, in that case, are we looking at some deep-seated resentment towards the victim? I'm afraid I couldn't say. Apart from visiting second-hand bookshops, the defendant, Mr. Natsume, doesn't appear to get out much. At this moment in time, we haven't been able to establish any sort of connection between him and the victim.
Yes, I agree. If theft and grievance have been ruled out as the motive, what reason could Mr. Natsume possibly have had stabbing the young woman? Yet you arrested the man in spite of that, in a totally unjustified and heavy-handed way.
Objection!
Oh, holy shit.
Pray, forgive the discourtesy of flinging a freshly uncorked bottle into the public gallery, but your words have soured its hallowed bouquet. For it is you, my learned friend, who is being heavy-handed here.
What?
Scotland Yard does not arrest people without good cause. That should be beyond question. Inspector Gregson, the prosecution calls for your formal testimony. Explain to the court precisely why the constabulary came to arrest the Nipponese student. Yes, sir.
Mr. Natsume's arrest.
As I said, it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon when the incident occurred, and there was an unusually light fog. Visibility was reasonably good, and there was no one else about but the victim and the accused. Out of the blue, the victim was stabbed from behind and subsequently collapsed on the pavement. The accused ran off, scattering his belongings all over the floor. Those being a number of old books he just bought, he was on his way home from a bookshop, it seems. It was just a matter of working out who the books belonged to, and we found the bloke to arrest him. Old books, you say? Yes, my lord, I have a photograph here of the scene of the crime, taken immediately after the incident. Oh yes, I'll clearly see the books in which you are referring. I will take the photographic print as evidence. Please, Inspector.
Three books. Picture of Monsieur Lecoq. Reading of Gabriel Canterbury Yearnings.
You Nipponese are a spineless breed, too cowardly to admit defeat, denying everything despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary.
Well,
Forgive me, Lord Van Zeeks, but the defendant is not denying everything, as you put it.
What are you doing, Mrs. Sato?
Do go on.
Mr. Natsume has admitted to playing some part in the incident. Isn't that right, Mr. Naruto?
Well, now you mention it. When we visited him in the prison yesterday, he did tell us what had all happened.
As I was walking along with that accursed pavement, I could make out the sole silhouette of another ahead of me. A woman, wearing a green overcoat she was, and just as I was about to overtake her, she suddenly let out a scream and collapsed onto the cold hard slab of stone at my feet. I was terrified. I had to get away from there. So I ran, as fast as my legs could carry me back to my cursed lodgings.
A green overcoat. Pretty forgot his voice. Well, that's exactly what the woman in the print is wearing.
Oh my, a photographic print in full color. What will the world come up with next?
The defendant has done nothing more than admit he fled the scene of the terrifying incident. It does not mean he is guilty of the heinous crime of stabbing the woman in the back.
There was nobody else there at the time. Just the two of them, the victim and the accused. In other words, there is nobody else who could possibly have stabbed the woman. A fact that the accused concedes. It seems this cross-examination could prove to be pivotal, counsel. Proceed, please.
Yes, my lord. Nothing for it. I have to use this cross-examination to turn the tables here. It's our only chance. Mr. Natsume's arrest. I'll just press everything.
Hold it!
Light fog, you say? Well, light for London. You could see the opposite side of the street for once. Not much further, though. That's light, is it? Around these parts, yes. Not something I'd expect a Japanese fellow like yourself to know, of course. I've read that London is famous for its fog. But in my country, people usually imagine that it gives the city a rather beautiful appearance.
How quaint.
Yes, well, it's not something us Londoners tend to romanticize, as I expect you could appreciate. I see. At this time of the year, the fog causes a large number of accidents, especially when it's heavy. Sometimes you can't even see your own hand at the end of your arm.
Indeed. The other day, I was nearly trampled by horses before I could see the carriage they were pulling.
So Sato-san and I should definitely remember to stop, look, and listen.
However, on the day that concerns us, the fog was somewhat lighter than usual. A fact no doubt lamented by the accused.
Huh.
Hold it!
How are you able to state that with any certainty?
Quite simply, my learned friend.
Because that is what the witnesses to the crime have told us. Ah, yes, Inspector Gretchen mentioned the witnesses yesterday, didn't he?
That's right. One of them is a policeman, I believe, from Scotland Yard.
That is correct, ma'am. Then we must hear that testimony. The prosecution, of course, will call him to the stand, should it be necessary.
But wait a minute. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, in the middle of winter, it would have been dark already.
No matter how light the fog might have been, no one could have seen. I'm unaware of the situation of your tiny island in the east. But here in the capital city of Great Britain, all main roads are illuminated in the night by gas streetlights.
Ah!
The prosecution believes there would have been ample light by which to witness the crime. Quite. Here in London, for the first time in history, mankind has completely conquered the darkness. Which means we really need to hear those witness statements. If I could just get through the fog of this cross-examination, maybe we'll be able to. Seems the counsel for the defense is taking stock. Continue with your testimony, Inspector.
Hold it!
From behind, you say? That's right. Oh, yes, you can see from this print.
Yes, quite so, Inspector. The handle of the weapon is clearly protruding from the victim's back. And you say this poor woman, Miss Green, remains in critical condition? Comatose, no less?
I'm afraid so, my lord, yes. She's been treated at Bart's. I was hopeful that she'd come around before the trial started so I could take a statement, but it wasn't to be.
Yes, that is indeed a pity. It would have been most illuminating to hear the victim's own account of events.
Luck is on your client's side, it seems.
On the contrary, my client has been exceedingly unlucky.
Your force of tone is seriously undermined by those disturbingly wide eyes, I'm afraid. Ran off, scattering his belongings all over the floor. Mr. Natsume's belongings? I think you'll find it's all there in the photographic print of the crime scene.
Yes, the 3 books on the floor.
That's right, my lord. Second-hand books they were. Irreparably damaged after falling in the snow, of course. The accused could easily have carried all 3 books in one hand, which means his other hand would have been free to wield a knife, for example.
He's very clever, isn't he?
What do you mean?
He made it extremely hard for me to assert that Mr. Natsume had his hands full with his books. He's managed to close the one avenue of escape we might have had before we even knew he was there.
You mean to say the defendant was holding his belongings as he thrust his knife into the woman's back?
That must be what happened, my lord, yes.
Hold it!
The defendant apparently visits a second-hand bookshop on a daily basis. Yes, so I understand. A shop full of old English literature. I commend the accused on the lofty subject matter of his scholarly attention. The bloke's room was stacked to the floor to the ceiling with those musty old books. Can you tell us more about the bookshop in question, please, Inspector? Well, if I must, I'll have to ask you to look at the street map again, I'm afraid. The closest second-hand bookshop to the accused lodgings is this place here, Urban Books. Little place on the corner of Briar Road and Meerchum Street. As it happens, the accused is currently living in lodgings on the other side of Briar Road at the opposite end. Which means it doesn't take a genius to work out the route in which he was taken home. Something like this.
Yes, I concur with your conclusions, Inspector. The defendant would certainly have passed the scene of the crime on his way home from that particular shop.
Mr. Narado, I think what the inspector just told us could turn out to be of vital importance.
Yes, I agree. The most important point in the inspector just made being Urban Books. Your Books. Okay, that's why I had never heard that name. Bookshop's name. Inspector Gregson, may I ask you a favor?
What?
Would you kindly add the name of the bookshop to your formal testimony, please? I believe it may be of vital importance.
Maybe?
Oh, well, you know, I mean, yes! It could be a very important clue.
Very well. Not that I could see it being of great significance. But please revise your testimony accordingly, Inspector.
Yes, sir, my lord. Whatever you say. Could the man be any more sardonic? I haven't heard someone say sardonic in a long time. A second-hand book receipt. Objection! If I could just stop you there, Inspector Gregson.
What is this, Sunshine? I'm a busy man, you know.
This is a receipt we found in Mr. Natsume's room. It was issued on the day of the incident, and the details of the purchase of 3 second-hand books. You found that in the accused's room, did you? Yes, but the point is not where the receipt was found, but the name of the shop printed on it.
Go on.
This receipt was issued from a bookshop called Your Books.
Your Books? My O-R-E, I presume?
Yes, my lord. So Mr. Natsume did indeed purchase a number of books at the second-hand bookshop that day. However, the bookshop in question was not Bourbon Books.
Eh? What? Inspector, do you know of this other bookshop?
Yes, sir. Your Books is another second-hand bookshop not far from Bourbon Books. It's just that, well, it's such a small place I didn't think the accused would have known about it.
Objection!
But in fact, that is the bookshop which the defendant visited on the day in question. And this receipt proves it.
Objection!
Yes, for what difference it makes. Wherever the man purchased the musty tomes, it makes no difference in the final analysis.
Objection!
I disagree. I mean, after all,
I have this read mat here, if that might be of help.
Oh, yes, thank you. Have a look at this, please. If the defendant had been returning from Bourbon Books, then yes, he would almost certainly have passed the place where Miss Green was attacked. However, take into account the fact he was actually at another bookshop, Your Books, it may very well turn out that he wouldn't have passed that location at all.
Could that be true?
My, it rather depends on where this other bookshop is, but I do declare it may be a possibility.
Is that right, Mr. Lois, what you just said? Absolutely. It absolutely could be right.
Inspector Gregson, where is this Your Books establishment?
Well, obviously we looked into that. Turns out it's Your Books. It's just here in the corner of Meerschaum Street, going east. And there you have it, as you could clearly see now. Oh.
My learned Nipponese friend is obviously in training to be a clown, the way he regales us with such witticisms. To your future career in the circus.
Grr, you put that glass down now, or I'll put it down for you.
I didn't think I'd need to spell it out, but here we go. If the accused was coming from your books instead of bourbon books, there's no doubt he would still have passed the place the victim was stabbed. I would have taken the other way. Yeah, I would have taken the other way personally, because then I'd have a... Let me see if I could put my mouse here. No!
Yes, thank you, Inspector. Allow me to reiterate for my learned, if somewhat slow, Nipponese friend. Wherever the man purchased his musty tomes, it makes no difference in the final analysis.
As I suspected, you can't fool me, and I don't suggest you try.
What do I say, eh? I've had enough of this now.
Beg your pardon? Terribly sorry, but would you mind repeating that?
Mr. Naruto, we mustn't give up.
What do you mean?
If the prosecution's assertion is correct, members of the jury may very well decide that Mr. Natsume is guilty.
She's absolutely right.
You must think. You must consider the assertion just put forward by the prosecution very, very carefully.
It claims Saseki-san must have passed the location of the incident on his way home from your books, but...
Objection!
The assertion just made by the prosecution is fundamentally flawed.
Explain yourself, counsel.
Yes, my lord. You can see what I mean on this map. When returning from your books to his lodgings, Mr. Natsume could have followed the route suggested by prosecution. However, here's my mouse. So, normally I'd go this way, because I like going straight. Less turns. That would have been my excuse. However, that isn't the only conceivable route to take between the two places. If the defendant used these streets, look what happens. He arrives back at his lodgings without passing the location where the victim was attacked.
Objection!
Talking back to a clown is a fool's errand, of course. However, I feel compelled to point out that that route is what is commonly referred to as the long way round. On a cold winter's night, why would any man choose to take the longer route home?
Well,
It's extremely simple. He wouldn't. In other words,
he went to build a snowman.
the accused took the obvious route back to his lodgings and is the obvious perpetrator of this crime.
Objection!
But, yes, I got it. Obviously, we must ask the man himself. Ask Mr. Natsume which route he took home.
I have already informed the court of the accused's response to such questioning. He claims he has no recollection. That's right. As I said, the bloke seems to spend his time outside wandering aimlessly from A to B. There was no exception. He says he doesn't remember where he was or which route he took home.
I don't.
I don't believe this.
Thank you, my learned friend. Suggest that we do not waste any more of the court's time by wandering aimlessly around the subject. Pray, what say you, insightful jurors?
But even if that's the case, the defense still...
I agree with Lord Feinzoix, wholeheartedly in every way.
But I don't believe it. Does this mean... We members of the jury are completely convinced now.
Very well, in that case, I hereby call upon all members of the jury to present your findings to the court.
Guilty!
Guilty.
Guilty! 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 Guilty!
It will appear the jury's leading is unanimous.
We gotta use that special rule again. To the insightful members of the jury, I applaud your brave resolve. You serve Queen and country admirably.
Mr. Naruhodo.
No, not yet. It's not over yet. I have one last chance to sway the opinion of the jury. I have to tip the balance of the scales the other way. I have to turn this around. Somehow. Those are the eyes of a queer, not yet willing to give up and die. So I presume you intend to wield your rights again in this trial. Rights of the defense written into the antiquated British law that should have been buried long ago. Call it antiquated if you will, but it's the defense's prerogative to carry out the summation examination if it so chooses.
Very well, Counsel. In accordance with the letter of the law, we shall proceed with the summation examination. Are the members of the jury ready, Mr. Foreman?
Of course we're ready.
I'm all too familiar with the Nipponese whippersnapper and his uncas refusal to throw in his alley. Very well then. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will each explain on what grounds you have determined the defendant to be guilty.
Alright, I think I'll end it here, and next time we'll start the summation examination. Thanks for watching, see ya.